not want to miss this. So for everybody who is new to this, we're still true to this. This is On One with Angela Rye, a masterclass series, and where we only learn from the best, the masters. And today's master is Willard Smith, my friend, and he is, I call him Willie Llama. You all will see why, I'm sure, in this interview, in this training. He's going to teach me how to act today.
Yes.
And I am so excited about that. But I also thought that we could just engage in some conversation first.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's important. So one of the things I really wanted to do with this is, this moment in quarantine has given us space for those of us who are not essential workers, for those of us who have not fallen ill, to reset in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I really want to make sure that I'm creating opportunity and space for people to do things they've never done, but they've always wanted to do, maybe.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I can say about the acting piece is that I was in drama class. I took 3 years of drama in high school.
Oh, okay.
I wrote a play in my day.
And your little August Wilson zone?
Well, I wasn't quite August Wilson. I'm not quite there. But I will tell you that what I've learned over time, Will, is acting, from watching some of your stuff too, seems to be like another layer of therapy for people that want to go like to the advanced level. And for me, because I really enjoy conversing with people from a host standpoint, I feel like it would make me a better host to know how to act and connect with people in a different way. So what do you think about that?
Oh no, absolutely. So let's first start with like a definition, right? So acting, essentially, you're watching a person perform actions. So at the end of the day, that's all it is. Situations present themselves and a person takes actions. So acting is performing actions. So where do the actions come from? The actions come from internal impulses that we have in our reaction to the circumstance, right? So what an actor learns how to do is to simulate, a good actor, you learn how to simulate in an authentic way the reaction to the fantasy circumstances that have been presented. So in its simplest form, in order to do that, you just study, you watch, you pay attention to human beings. That's a big part of acting. You just watch what human beings do, and you keep what we call a toolbox. And you just have a toolbox of emotional perceptions that you can call on in any given circumstance, right? So what people, bad actors, try to show the audience what they're thinking and feeling, and great actors internalize, and you just learn how to take yourself to the emotional space that the character is in. You learn how to relate. You learn how to have compassion and understanding for someone who believes things that you don't believe. Right? So you learn to understand what makes a human being do what they do. So that's really all it is. You look at a scene and you just want to understand. And why I think acting would be good for you is you make a living on your opinion, right? Acting, you have to completely discard your opinion and totally open yourself up to the emotional comprehension of someone else's plight, no matter how despicable or foolish it may be to you. There's no such thing as a foolish point of view as an actor. There are places you may not want to go. There are things like for me, it's like because I learned how to take my mind so deeply into the thoughts and feelings of other people to play a character. I don't want to play a pedophile. Like, I don't want to understand that.
No.
Right? Even like a film like Django, you know, I was going to do Django.
You were?
Yeah, I was, you know, Quentin and I, you know, we met and I was really close on Django. And
I hated that movie. I'm so glad you didn't do that.
I didn't do that.
Jamie Foxx. I hated Django. I have a whole think piece, Will. Sorry for this. I interrupted.
No, this is good. This is what we're doing.
Wait, with an opinion after you just told me my opinion ain't shit. But listen, Django, I don't write think pieces about movies. I was so mad at that movie. I want to know why you did do it though. I have to. No,
we can definitely talk about that. For me, first off, it was Willow. I was in it, so I sat the family down because of the psychological space I was going to have to live in to comprehend those atrocities. Willow was like, you know, Daddy, please don't. Like, Daddy, please don't, because she knew what the time around the house would be if I was living in that psychological space. And she was like, she was like, Daddy, please don't. I don't want to live like that.
She's like, I'm good.
So then I would have had to separate myself and sequester myself from the family to transform my mind in that way. And then ultimately, so why I didn't do it, and Quentin and I were talking about it, and I saw Django as it could have been the greatest Black love story in history. It could have been the greatest Black love story in history. Somebody takes his wife and he trains himself to go and retrieve his wife through the atrocities of slavery. I was like, that is set up to be the greatest love story in the history of African American cinema.
Yeah.
And Quentin saw it as a vengeance story.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, my heart doesn't live in vengeance in that way, right? You can take vengeance, but you take vengeance for love, right? And, you know, it's just, to me, it was too critical a story to make for vengeance. You got to make it for love. The final moment of that movie has to feel like Titanic.
Yeah. Dang, you know? I was just about to say, like, I definitely didn't get that. So now I appreciate the fact that you're like, this was my perception of how things could have went. Yeah. And it is so interesting to see, like, I'm sure there are a lot of times where someone either auditions for a role or they're asked to do a role, and their creative mind about how the actor should be portrayed is very different from what the director or the screenwriter thinks. Have you ever, besides Django, have you ever not taken a role because of, like, we just not aligned on?
Well, yeah, most of the things I say no to is because I'm not aligned with the filmmaker. You know, there are certain there's certain beliefs, and there's a mission that I have in the world that I want my work to be a part of. Right. So as I'm getting older, I'm sort of expanding the spectrum of things that I will do, because everything has its place. Right. So I may move a little farther as I'm becoming more conscious of my beliefs and constructs, and I'm becoming more conscious of the character of Will Smith that I've created. It's starting to become interesting to me to how far can I expand outside of the boundaries and limits that I've given myself. And being an actor is a great way to just to really explore those shadows.
What's the greatest stretch you've had so far in acting? Like, what's the character where you're like, ooh, this one was really like outside of my comfort zone?
Probably 7 pounds was a pretty big big stretch for me. The hardest work was Ali. But it wasn't a psychological stretch for me. And me and Ali believe similar things, right? So it wasn't a big stretch that way, but it was definitely the hardest transformation as an actor, more physical on body, dialect, learning how to box. But in terms of understanding what someone is thinking, right? And that's really what acting is how much can you step into someone else's shoes? And the beauty about that as acting is that is the human skill for successful relationships.
Yeah.
How much can you put aside what you think and what you feel and what your dreams are and what your needs are? How much can you put them aside and deeply and completely understand and have compassion for someone's opposing point of view? And
yikes. That's hard. I mean, there's some, like you said, where you're not stretching so far. It's like, okay, that's in the fringe of my belief system, or that's kind of similar to where I am. But like, you know what I do is some things are like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I am trying to know what you're talking about. But that's like the other side of this. So I think that's so fascinating. It reminds me, my mom says all the time. She's been telling me all my life. I think she's hoping that I'll get this. Angela, the greatest skill you can learn in life is perspective taking.
Yep, absolutely.
It
don't necessarily get ratings, you know. It doesn't get ratings. It's like people prefer collision and conflict. You know, the problem with collision and conflict is you turn it off when you go home. It's like you got to live in that space, you know. So it just creates internal conflict, you know, when you live in that space. That's what's so hard for military people or for fighters. You know, you come home and, you know, you've been in Syria for 14 weeks. It's really hard to walk through Walmart in Peoria and feel safe. You know, it's just where you take your mind to, you know. So in terms of, you know, you want to fight or you want to love, you know, and there's hard decisions that have to get made either way.
So you talked about internal conflict for just a moment. Is there a transition to getting back to Will after you're coming out of character? And does that in and of itself feel like internal conflict? Like you have to come back to yourself after playing a certain role for a certain amount of time?
So this is one of the things, and I've never talked about this, right?
Breaking news.
I've never talked about this, and it may take too long. We may have to do another conversation, but I'll try to talk about it briefly. So method acting, right? So I did method acting on 6 Degrees of Separation. And essentially method acting is when you submerge yourself for extended periods of time, confining yourself only to the thoughts of the character, right? So at a stretch when I was doing 6 Degrees of Separation, I took 9 days without breaking character, right? So you eat what the character eats. You teach yourself to like the kinds of people the character likes, the kind of clothes the character likes, and you train your mind through blocking out Will and only living as the character, right? And it's what Jim Carrey talks about a lot. And when you do that, you realize that Will Smith, Jim Carrey, is a character just like the character is a character, right? Wow. It's made up ideas that you say are you.
There goes a Willy Llama moment, ladies and gentlemen. Pay attention.
Right?
Here we go.
What you realize is that what you think is you, that's so permanent, your political beliefs, the who you love, how you react when people disrespect you. You think all of those things are you. When you break that perception and you go so far into another character, and then it's time to come out and you can't find your old beliefs, they're gone. You realize that your ego, your personality is a construct, just like the character is a construct, right? And that's what happened with Jim Carrey when he realized Jim Carrey's a character too. And I had a little bit of that experience. I was like,